And first, the contents. There are 5 parts in my presentation. And the first one is the background of my study. I want to begin with the keyword change. And as we all know, there are so many changes in China nowadays. I would like to list 3 notable changes. And the first one, the economic globalization. And the world economy and markets are very different today than they were years ago. So enterprises are facing more intense competition from around the world, and they should not only compete in the domestic market, but also face challenges in the international market. And so enterprises need management talents with a global vision. And the second change, the business model.
Right now, Chimi, are you a second slide right now? Are you the same? Have you shifted to a new slide or is the same slide? It's slide number 1 now.
Yeah. Now it's the second one. The second.
You gotta move the slide now.
Yeah. One by one.
Yeah.
The second one, the business model has completely changed. This is particularly true in faster-growing countries such as China. So, well-educated employees with professional skills are in an urgent need. And the third change.
You are still on the cover slide. You're still slide number 1.
Really? So
you
now what about?
Yeah. Oh, welcome, Mohammad. No, you're still on the slide number 1.
Without the other. Okay, I will show all of them. Can you see all of them now?
No, it's not moving. I have the first slide, impact of HRM practices on organizational performance. It's the same slide.
Shall I do?
Take your time, it's all right. I'm still.
What about this time?
Nope, it's not moving yet.
Okay, I will.
No, it's moving. No, it's moving. Yes. Okay, all right, good.
Stop the.
Yeah.
Maybe
it stops somewhere in Hong Kong or in Macau or something.
Okay. The second change I want to talk about is the business model. The business model has completely changed. This is particularly true in faster-growing countries such as China. So, well-educated employees with professional skills are in an urgent need. And the third one I want to talk about, the change, is the demographic shifts, such as fertility decline, aging of population. You know, in recent years, the problem of aging population in China has become increasingly prominent. And just several days ago, the Chinese government has approved a three-child policy. That means it's legal to have 3 babies in a family. But before, we just admitted to have at most two babies. So, in this background, human resource planning becomes more important, and competing in the labor market for age-appropriate workers has become critical. So all these changes point to one key element, that is human resource. And in order to cope with all these changes and to achieve better organizational performance in the competition, enterprises pay more attention to the key factor in production and operation, the human resource. More and more people realize that human resource management is an important part of business assets and that have an impressive impact on organizational performance. And companies have been encouraged to adopt a range of reformist or performance-enhancing human resource management practices to expand their share of the total industry and improve their intensity in the global market. And okay, stop the automation. The second one, the problem statement. Despite the widespread recognition that HRM practices are strongly identified with organizational performance, there is still a need for stronger evidence for the HRM performance relationship in different social settings. And at the same time, previous studies of HRM practices and organizational performance have shown that CEO support is a critical factor in influencing the effective application of HRM practices and subsequently organizational performance. That's because CEO always control the key resources of the company, and if they pay attention to the HRM practices, the HRM will get more support. So my study tried to analyze whether there's a positive correlation between HRM practice and organizational performance, and whether the CEO manages this relationship in Chinese organizations. And the second one, in real management life, executives have opposing views on the allocation of human resource or staff practices. The organization can't currently gain the upper hand or improve its performance by paying little attention to the nature of its faculty, board, or staff and resource practices. The results show that the application of human resource management practices in China remains in the underlying phases. This may be because private initiatives, especially small and medium-sized support companies, generally aim to make more profit than paying a large amount of money to pursue important HRM practices. They will always compare the benefits, which one will give them more profits. So, in other words, Chinese CEOs still don't see human resource management practices as fundamental. And through my research, I want to assess the impacts of human resource management practices on Chinese firms' organizational performance mediated with impact of CEO support. But I think it's a little big, or just my thinking, my idea, because I have still don't search so many papers or so many references. And this is the first one, but I think it's a little big because, in HRM practices, there are several, mainly 6 business contents, such as recruitment, training, performance evaluation, compensation, and etc. So maybe I will find some of them to analyze the relationship between, for example, the recruitment and organizational performance, or to analyze the relationship between training and organizational performance, or maybe methodology. And the research is descriptive and will use a quantitative survey to conduct ongoing research. All organizations in China make up the research population. Data with the correct width and depth were collected via internet, and data at the company level were collected via questionnaires sent to CEOs or senior human resource managers who are familiar with the human resource management of the company. And the data were coded and then examined with SPSS software And this research would use a 5-scale Likert strategy for the explanatory study. And references. Some of my references, but I think it's sometimes out of dated. I still have to update my reference, and that's all for my presentation. It's a little, I think, for me, I think it's just at the beginning, because I'm interested in human resource management and interested in the business mode change, the change in business mode. I want to find the link, the relationship between these two, but still I don't think I have found the keys. And I want to hear some suggestions from you, Professor. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Chi Min. I know that I gave you a short notice. I think it was last week, right? Last week, 2 weeks ago. So it's good that you have developed something here for us to start the conversation. In fact, you have done more than I expected, which is good. You do have some. This is also based on your proposal, right? More or less, yes.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see. Can you go to your research questions?
Problems.
Research question. Let's go to the. So all research is about answering research questions. So let's go to your research question. All research objectives. It's the same. Research objectives or research question. Scroll down a bit more. Right. Okay.
It's not that specific.
Right. Let's see that to assess the impacts of HRM practices on Chinese firms' organizational performance mediated with impact of CEO support, human resource management mainly includes, okay, to analyze the relationship between recruitment. All right. I'm not sure last time when we discussed this, I'm not sure I conveyed this to you. I do think that the studies on human resource management and organizational performance have been there. I would like you to really go through the literature, right?
Yeah.
To see what kinds of studies have been carried out before, and discussing HRM and organizational performance. There are plenty of them out there, right? And I think you would want to go deeper than this for your PhD research. So sometimes you could study something that people have studied before, but looking at a different context or from a different angle, right? So you do want to think about human resource management not in a general sense like this, right? Not in a general perspective, much more specific than this. The question is, what is it that you're interested in, and what kind of data do you have access to? So those are the questions you want to ask. Tell me, you just now you were problematizing your research. You were talking about globalization too, right? Can you go back a bit more on globalization? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Just were you talking about globalization? Some way you were touching on, yeah, economic globalization. There you go. All right. All right. Globalization is one area that has grown huge, big, but big now. My thesis was on globalization when that was a couple of decades ago. So when I started to carry out my my thesis, my PhD on globalization. I think at that time my supervisor, who is also an expert in globalization, says at that time there were like no more than 3-4 books written on globalization, right? And then just a couple of years later, and then suddenly there were dozens and then hundreds and now thousands of books written on globalization. What's I think what's interesting or what's important here that you might want to look at is the idea of talents. I think the discourse of human resource have actually shifted or expanded into the discourse of talent management. Talent management. So some folks have relinquished the term human resource and in favor of the word talent, because human resource is looking at human as resource, whereas talent is looking at them at the the capability, the competencies of the employees, right? So now one way you can slice this, one way you can angle your research is to look at the types of talents that you want to focus on, and contextualize that with globalization. So maybe there's certain types of talents that might be more relevant, more more strategic, more effective within certain types of globalization, right? So if you're interested in that, so the idea of talent is a growing field, right? So if you look at globalization as a phenomena itself, certain types of talents become more useful, more marketable, more harder to replace, more valuable, right? Whereas some other talents become much more dispensable, meaning easy to dispense, easy to let go. So maybe you do want to look at that angle, maybe, right? So what kind of talents? No, if we're talking about processing accounts, stuff like that, right? A lot of the accounting processing has been carried out by countries with lower wages, because they do not need to speak with anyone much, right? And they just can, look at the numbers and process the accounts, right? So even when they need to have certain human contact, like talking and speaking with clients or customers, there's call centers right now, all right? So and the call centers you can even fine-tune to different parts of the world too. So you can find call centers that train people to speak with American accent, but with a southern drawl, like so you all come back now, like the southern cowboys, right? The southern cowboys, right? The southerners. So there's some are trained, and they are not Americans. They're from Bombay or some or Manila. They're from, because it's cheaper, right? Cost effective. I do not know whether you are looking at that kind of human resource management talent, right? Or are you looking at something more than that? There are also certain more cultural aspects of talent, right? So which is fascinating. See, in Penang we have Intel in Penang. Intel the processor, Intel processor, right? So the biggest Intel operation in the world is in Penang. It's in not too far away from our campus, and they have a campus. They have an Intel campus in Penang. And I've been invited before to train people over there, but then I don't train a bunch of people. I just spoke with one person, and they have diversity training, diversity management training, right? So they have somebody from the Latin American coming over then the talent management is about multicultural talent management. So it's very focused, it's very specific, and they would bring people to Penang for Asian cultural sensitivities, Asian multicultural training. They will come over here. So what I'm saying, I'm telling you, Chimin, is this, that you might want to be more specific in your HRM. You know, we might want to look at certain types of talents, right? And start focusing on something much more specific. And the way you want to think about PhD is that you want to be able to look at an area certainly that interests you, that's important, but it's also in an area that people have not studied yet, but you will find it meaningful in the context of what you're studying, right? Certainly you can study whatever you want, right? For for PhD, that's up to you. But what I'm saying is that if you're, for instance, if you're looking at globalization, one aspect of globalization is actually how, in the context of human resource, right, talents, is how people adapt to a different environment. Because we're talking about globalization, right? But if you're talking about something much more specific, then not necessarily globalization, then you can focus on something else too. So, so number one is that I'm asking you to think about something more specific, something more meaningful. So this, what you have right now is somewhat general. Think about something more specific. And the other thing is to look at the sampling. The sampling issue, and I see that your sampling is somewhat general too. So you can think about, like Chao Lei just now was looking at internet enterprises, right? So there's a specific sampling, right? So what happens is when you look at more specific sampling, you'll probably find spaces of research. You'll find that theoretical vacuum much more readily available for you. If it is too wide, everyone has studied a lot of things. But if you go more and more narrow, more specific, then you'll find that there are areas that people have not studied before because it's specific. You know what I'm saying? So you can look at, for instance, if you're talking about talent, if you talk about globalization, you can look at what is it? Yeah, intergenerational communication, talent management, something like that, right? So now we have the Gen X, the millennials, and then we have the Gen Z, right? So that is one type of talent, to be able to communicate between different generations. But if you draw that with another level, another dimension, you have gender and you have culture, right? So is there something that you can develop based on different characteristics of the sample itself, right? If you're looking at the unit of analysis being the individuals, right? But if you're looking at the unit of analysis being companies, then you can slice it differently. You know what I'm saying now? So just now I was focusing on individuals, right? Gen Z, Gen X, millennials, gender, ethnic, Asian, American. That's individual. You could also look at companies, right? Is there something about China is growing so fast, right? There's the small medium-sized enterprises. You can look at that, right? Or the women-led small medium-sized enterprises, right? So you talk about CEO, right? Supported by the CEOs, you know, right? So is there a difference between a company led by a male and a company led by a female? Maybe, maybe not. Right? So that's where you sample it based on the companies, right? So that'd be another way to slice your research. So you can look at your research based on your company. You can look at your research based on the individuals within the company, right? And then from there you can find that space that people have not explained before. So your problem statement, if you can go back to your problem statement, and go back to problem statement. This is background, right? The next one, next one. The next one, okay. But there is still a need for stronger evidence and performance relationship in different social settings. As have shown that it's a critical influencing factor. All right. Right. If you're interested to look at the CEO support, how about looking at different types of companies? Right, different types of companies. Maybe CEO support is much more effective for service-oriented companies, or much more effective for certain type of service-oriented companies, right? So you can, depending on what you want to look at, even service oriented companies, you can slice it even further. The culinary, fashion, web design. You can look at specific areas, and when you look at specific areas, there'll be fewer and fewer research carried out in more specific areas, and that's where you can find that vacuum that that has not been explained by anyone. You know what I'm saying now, Chimi?
Do you think this topic is a little, ordinary?
It is general. That's what I'm saying.
General?
It's general.
Yeah.
It's ordinary in the sense it's general. That's why I'm saying that you want to find a specific area to study, unless you want to look at a mega theory, a meta theory, and there's a different story. I would not encourage you to look at something too big at a PhD level, unless you have a different set of data. There'll be more different. There'll be a different research, of course. It won't be this kind of research. So I'm saying that this is general, that you want it to be much more specific, and there are different ways of slicing, cutting, angling, looking, framing at your research. But it must be your research, of course. If you just need to find that space that is that you find meaningful, and that you find important to research on. Well, sometimes it's not important, it's fine too, but you can, you want to study something very specific, you could do that too, right? That's nothing wrong with that. But you want to go more specific than this, right? So one of the improvements you want to make, right, based on what you have done here, is to look at that more specific area, maybe a particular type of talents. You're talking about different what do you use just now? Different areas of HRM, right? Yeah. There's about recruitment, there's about retention, about training, and all that. So yeah. How many types? Six business contents. Recruitment, training, performance, evaluation, compensation, right? So Now, I tell you one example which I heard. This is about CSR again. This is about CSR. My experience vis-a-vis companies has a lot to do with CSR. There's one small company in Malaysia. Well, it's not small, but it's big in Malaysia, but small in the world, right? It's an investment company in Malaysia. So they went. I'm not sure I told you this yet. Have I told you this? No, yeah. No, I haven't told you about a Malaysian company, right? No. So this one has to do with recruitment. So this is when I was in London. Different folks came to my university at that time, recruiting different students who are about to graduate, right? So they go to universities to recruit students, right? So there's one company from Malaysia, investment company. They want to get the best brain, so they come to a few universities. They also went to Cambridge, right? And their message was simple. They said they cannot compete. This investment company, right? They said they cannot compete with the Goldman Sachs. They cannot compete with Citibanks. They cannot compete with a lot of these big companies, and then, but they want to get the best brains. So their strategy was a good strategy, right? They say, look, we are not a huge company, but we are a company with a mission, and we are a company who want the our new recruits to be able to do what they want to do. So they turn the CSR into a recruitment strategy. So they say, okay, we will pay for your 1 month CSR project. You can choose whatever CSR project you want, right? And we will support your CSR project. We will pump in money for the choice of your CSR project. You can go and save the dolphins. You can go and save the monkeys. You can go and help the homeless. I will give you off for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, right? And but we want you all to have mission. We want you all to have mission. We want you all to change the world. So that is a very powerful appeal to youngsters with idealism, right? So you are all the best brains. We need the best brains to change the world. Come to our company, right? Oh, so it was a powerful appeal, right? Come and we will support you. So, and they cannot compete with the salary of the Goldman Sachs, the Lloyds of London. They cannot compete with all the big companies. But by doing a different kind of recruitment strategy, they got responses from Oxford, Cambridge, LSEs, City, University, whatever. They responded because they changed their recruitment strategy and personalized it, and it was a CSR strategy, of course. It was a recruitment strategy using CSR, but I thought it was strategic because, but I'm being critical of CSR, but I'm more support as well as critic, right? But I thought this was good because they are letting the recruits, the new recruits to decide what CSR they want to do, and they will give money, right? So that will create loyalty. That will create loyalty and sense of meaning, to the employees. So I thought there was power, and they get people who want to come all over to Malaysia and work in Malaysia in the investment company, right? So I thought it was fascinating research, recruitment strategy, right? By giving that space to the Gen millennials, right? The millennials at that time. So you can look at something like that.
Yes, I'm interested in CSR because I have read some of these papers before, and I think in China it's still a little difficult, especially for those small or medium sized companies to take responsibility. I think because
okay.
they will choose the profit sometimes because you have.
Well, maybe because they do not understand CSR, they do not say,
Yeah.
Because the CSR need not, you do not have to
The
spend
long-term earning, I think.
and there are things they could do without necessarily spending money, right? Another example where you could employ CSR for in human resource management. McDonald's in Malaysia does this, right? They hire persons with disabilities.
Yeah.
Work, right? I think I've seen that happening in the Philippines also, if I'm not mistaken. So and in Singapore they employ or elderlies in Singapore. Over here too, if I'm not mistaken. But generally speaking, they have this person with disability policy, and they find that they have higher loyalty, they lower turnover rate. So when you hire somebody young, right, they will jump and jump and jump and jump, right? But we hire somebody old, right? They okay, I'm tired of jumping around, right? Or you hire a person with disability, you treat the person right, they will stay loyal. And because a lot of companies do not think of persons with disability as a strength, as an attraction, and that's just one way, right? To have CSR policy in human resource management. You see that?
Yeah. Especially
So,
those international companies, I think
yes,
they take
yeah,
social responsibilities well.
yeah. So then I think the area of CSR that is not very well developed is in the area of workplace CSR, which relates to human resource management. The company I told you, the bank I told you, right, in Malaysia, they talk about humanizing the banking sector, but they treat their employees, like mules. Like the employees work so hard, so so the workplace CSR. I'm not sure it's in YouTube or not. I've given a few lectures where I quoted a good friend of mine from Vietnam who won the Employer of the Year award from Vietnam. His name is Dr. Tree. He, I thought his superb CSR strategies did not call CSR, but then eventually he called CSR. He has a workplace CSR policy where you can take shower in his office, right? In your office. I'm not talking about adults taking shower. I see
Taking shower.
shower, in a bathe, right?
Yeah.
Shower, right? It's not for the adults. It's for babies. It's for children. So I said, Tree, what is this? Yeah, well, the family, they can bring their family, they can bring the babies, and bathe the families in the office. Oh, so it's a family friendly workplace, right? So I said that's powerful. And then when I was looking at the office, I see all these smiley faces. This is like, I don't know, 10 years ago. Yeah, smiley faces. Why is it, why this family? Well, they have a happiness manager. Right? The happiness manager, interesting, right? That they and they, at first they said if somebody does good, so they will write something. The boss will write something. He said, "Why am I doing this alone?" So he empowers everyone to give smiley faces to any of the employee who does good to them. So everyone can give smiley faces, and that's part of their job appraisal. Are you helping other people in your workplace happy? Are you making them happy, right? So the boss doesn't have to think about how to make my workplace happy. They are helping each other to make themselves happy. So I thought that's a powerful idea, right? And it doesn't cost money. It doesn't cost money, right? I thought that's a good idea. By the way, he's an employee of the year in Vietnam, but many years ago, right? So he has all this wonderful workplace CSR going on in his office. And then he even has this book, and this book is used for recruitment. I said, what's in this book? Well, this book is he will show everyone that comes in into the company. This book is about those people whom has received help from the company, treatment, charity, and all that. It's all documented in the book. But the book is secret. It's not to be shown to the media. So they see, and he will show his them recruits. He said, look, the reason we are here is to help these people. And it's not for media. So CSR is not for publicity. So I thought there's a powerful way to create a sense of meaning to the employees, right? To show that you're here to help these old folks, this blind person. Is a medical company. It's not a big medical company, but it's a medium-sized medical company, right? Yeah. So and this is, you use CSR to give people a sense of purpose, and so it's no longer recruitment. It's about retention. So once you recruit the people, how do you make people have meaning working in the company? Retention strategy. Retention strategy was CSR to use for
So
retention.
meaningful.
So very meaningful, right? So I'm here to help people, right? So and I believe my boss because he does this, and he doesn't share it with the media. So it's not for public consumption. It's not for showing. It's so the trust, and that's why just now Charlie was talking about trust. Just now I was talking about global competitiveness. I said I like the word trust even better than competitiveness, because when people trust you, right, people will stay with you. You know, you trust the company, people will stay with the company, right? And CSR can establish that trust. If CSR is seen as doing something meaningful honestly, right? But that is one way to look at human resource management. So you can angle it that way, of course. So it is for you to look at this what you're doing in a much more specific, meaningful, impactful in terms of research, as well as manageable. And I tell you, access to data is important, right? So you got to think about that too. And sometimes what you can do is you can do case studies, right? Comparing between 2 or 3 companies, you could do that. So the beauty of starting from the beginning is that you have this blank slate. This is white piece of paper. You can draw whatever you want to draw. So you can imagine, you can fantasize about what you want to achieve with your research. And there's a beauty, the power of starting a new research, right? So you are not constrained by the methods that you can do quantitative, qualitative case study. You want to use Likert scale, you do want to use Likert scale, it's up to you too. Right? So think about it, find something. After all, you're going to spend a couple of years, right? 3 years, whatever, how many years. Find something, do something meaningful, do something good.
Right? And I think, yes, maybe I can find the relationship between human resource management and CSR.
But don't do it just because I tell you. But you think
because I really think human resource management is very important for a company, but this is very micro site. And from more big or micro site, I think maybe we should do something meaningful. For the not just only for the company, and also for the country, the world, or people, human beings. Maybe I should encode my aim, my target objective, and make it more specific and find the key point from the more big things, from all these things.
Chimin, I just want to say another thing. And I champion this thinking. The thinking is this, in every culture, especially a long established culture like China, like Chinese culture, right? You're talking about thousands of years, right? there are local wisdom in the
Mm.
Chinese culture, right? That you can extract out and show through your research and how that has been applied or how that manifests itself in your research. You could do that as well. So that's another way to approach, right? To look at local wisdom from your own culture, right? And the local culture can be, you know, the Han culture. It could be the Tianjin culture. You know? Right? Maybe there's something there too, right? Yeah. You know, you can extract out. You can, and that can be a theoretical contribution of your research. And theoretical contribution is the most important part of your research at the end, because you want to show that this research has advanced knowledge, has actually pushed the boundaries of knowledge even further, right? I mean, China has a lot of these gems and this wisdom that if you capture that and you show it, then I think it'd be a good and oftentimes we use the Western concepts and all that, right? Let's bring our Eastern concepts to them, you know.
Yeah, and I think I have to get to know other cultures to
Okay.
make comparison.
Yeah. I mean, oftentimes the one that is being quoted in management is always the Sun Tzu, the art of war, right?
孙子兵法。
兵法, Sun Tzu 兵法, the art of war. So I think there are other things besides that too. So that might be something that people can learn from the local wisdom, right? Yeah, so and maybe
知己知己知彼，知己知彼，百战不殆。You have to know yourself and know your enemy.
And know your environment too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. 汉语已经生锈了rusty, a bit rusty, you know. Okay. So what we would like to see next time, Chi Ming, the research questions be refined further, right?
Okay. I think I will find more papers and to read more, to know much about my environment and other culture environment, and then find my target.
Yes. Bring more purpose,
more meaningful and more specific.
Yes. All right.
Right.
That's good. All right, Shimi. Anyone has any comments or questions? Anything you want to add to what Chimin is doing this afternoon? I understand that. Anyone? Yeah. All right. Okay. If no one, then we can. Oh, connection is not that good. All right, we can move to Putri. Putri, are you ready? Chimin, can you stop sharing your slide? Okay, there you go. Putri, welcome back. I saw you in the beginning, isn't it? Okay. You ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right,
Thank you for the opportunity. I will share screen. Wait a minute. This is my I will share. This is my PowerPoint. Okay. Wait a minute. I will stop my video because the internet is not stable.
Okay, all right.
Okay, my I would like to presenting my research proposal related with politicized religion sentiment based on the light of Nusantaran concept. First, I will give the clear evidence why should this research to be linked with the Nusantaran concept, which I believe match with our focus study. And then second, the case study will be conducted in Indonesia and Thailand background. Why I choose it will be explained later on. Okay. So, we already knew Indonesia have several cases of politic religion sentiment, and it widened in racism. And then Thailand also has the same issues. They are suffering of religion sentiment issues. From the picture above, we just shock how the monk, which they picturize as a person who not have a relation with the mundane world, and they did several protests and did the violence of the law and banned the religion's activity forcefully. And then this is regarding with the example of political party that has used religion issues for his or her own needs can be found in other country. This is the example in the white world. I choose in India. Election manifestos have become a mere way for political parties to generate a minority vote banks. For example, ahead of the Telangana Assembly elections, the manifesto released by the Congress Party contained only minority-centric schemes like promising free electricity to mosque and church, special opportunities in government contracts for the Muslim. And then the Mamata Banjiris pray as she is a Muslim, but she is a Hindu. And then this is my background introduction. The issue of identity has become a popular threat to get votes. For example, in the 2019 election in Indonesia, issue of non-Muslim versus Muslims, and then in Thailand, issues of Buddhism versus Muslim. And then third, primordial sentiment-based political competition reduce the quality of the democratic process. And then fourth, the strengthening of identity politics can be detrimental because if religious sentiment remains a selling point for anyone going to forward, the performance and the programs that are carried out will no longer be important. As a result, rational voters suffer losses. And then my presumption or my keywords is a politic use the religion as a vehicle for its goals. So I will move a little bit further to Nusantaran concept, and then I will show you the relation between Nusantaran concept and politicized religion sentiment. We experience stability of political view from our ancestors. How many centuries needed to make two political view based on religion to be reconciled? This is a Sutasoma poem from Emputan Tular, Rawanika, Datu, Winus, Wus, Buddha, Wiswa, etc. It is said that Buddha and Shiva are two different substances. They are indeed different, but how can they be recognized? For the truth of Buddha and Shiva is singular and divided, but they are also one. There is no confusion in the truth. And then the root of research question is, this is a post research preliminary finding. Oh, okay, wait a minute. Then Empu Tantular give insight to the country about the resolution of a reconciliation to best a few. So peace and stable nation, because of this ideology, evidently make Nusantara Empire prosper in that time. Okay, this route of research question, research preliminary finding, post-reform, the issue of freedom of opinion and expression has increased in Indonesia. And then politicians use the same religion concept to increase votes as evidenced by the number of political parties based on religion appears. And then the causes religion sentiment to become sharp to dissect people views and manifest power. And then versus Thailand, the monarchy system of government feel threatened by the socialist democracy. And then in order to preserve the system of government, the monarchy's sovereignty, it suppressed his political opponent hardly, such as a minority. The government used religion sentiment to prevent opposing voice of minorities. And then I call it a many to one versus one to many. Many to one in Indonesia and versus one to many. Many to one, I will explain many to one and one many. In Indonesia, a many to one is a populist in Indonesia. And then in Thailand is conducted by monarchy. So from Indonesia case study, my research finding, we can see how politicians, this background view lead of violence. Okay. And then how politicians gather the high vote using the common majority religious views to minority by creating sentiments for increasing its political power. This is a many votes for increasing one political power, many to one. And in Thailand, how the government ensures the current power continues forever, maintaining the stability of current government system by creating religious sentiment toward minority. This is I call ensuring one current government power holds for all the Thai people, or one to many. This leads to violation. Nusantara concept of politics and religions, a code of conduct, 2 or 3 entities are having different political views. Yes, indeed, they are different, but the two are one, even though they are processed by different way. Nusantara concept as a ground truth. Okay, and then research idea and methodology concept. Indonesia, the analysis result of Indonesia religious sentiment for rising vote, and then the Thailand same. And then Nusantara concept of politics and religion, code of conduct. Many entities are having different political view. Yes, in India are different, but okay, this is the same. Okay. This result will be studied based on the light of politics of Nusantaran concept. And then my research question are why violation based on politicized religious sentiment happen in Indonesia and Thailand. And then second, Thailand and Indonesia has same root in Nusantara. Why had experienced suffering because of politicized religious sentiments, but Majapahit Empire succeeds overcoming the problems and strengthening the sovereignty, defining correspondence stable ideology. What is the position of Indonesia and Thailand politicized religious sentiment problem in the light of Nusantara political concept of ideology? And then third, making a solution model efforts of religions reposition in public area. Why is the solved problem of politicization of religion that hundreds of years ago happened is appearing now? This is my, I think this is my research novelty, positioning of politicized religious sentiment between Indonesia, Thailand, and the Nusantara concept. Okay. Okay, research positioning. This is I capture from Google Scholar about Nusantara history of concept and the Nusantara Malaysia and the geopolitics of South China, etc. There is no research related with a politicized religion sentiment between Indonesia and Thailand. And then research novelty, positioning of politicized religion sentiment between Indonesia, Thailand, and concept Nusantaran, and the Nusantaran concept. This is my research motivation. The analysis behind the political elites using religions issue to gain votes in the election of Indonesia and Thailand, and then to no influence is the issue of religion to gain sympathy from supporters in politics in Indonesia and Thailand. And then Nusantaran Empire is very special democratic country with a success combined two religions politics foundation as national principle. This is my personal background in the research motivation. I already write my article about a concept deradicalisasi in education. And then second, why we are unable to, this is a comparative politics method. And then third, brief study of analyzing ideological dimension of Islam radical Indonesia. And then fourth, the transformation of radical movement in Yogyakarta post 2019 presidential election. For basic preliminary research, a finding point of this research, politician use the religion for his or her own benefit, creating sentiment to other religions or belief. It is dangerous. This is my theoretical approach in analysis ethnicity with a primordial, constructive, and instrumentalist. And then a political sociology from Max Weber. Their main source of legitimacy, according to Max Weber, people have faith in a particular political or social order because it has been there for a long time. It is called tradition, because they have faith in the rules. This is called charisma, or because the truth is legality, specifically in the rationality of the rule of law. And then I use a concept identity politics, Cressida Hayes, with define ethnic identity politics as a political activity that theoretical finds experiences of injustice felt by certain ethnic group in certain social situation. This is my framework of thinking analysis the political actor, respond using religion sentiment, and then analysis with a primordial, constructivist, and instrumentalism. This is a political actor, and then political sociology theory, use traditional domination, charisma, and then dominant of legality from Max Weber. This is my methodology. Gather the data of Nusantaran concept of religion, politics relationship, create benchmarking or standard for analyzing the result of Indonesian and Thailand, analysis the finding based on the benchmarking criteria, and then in Indonesia, gather the data of violence because of religion sentiment, in 2016 until 2021. And then in Thailand, I will gather the data of violence because of religion sentiment also, same the years. And then I will analyze with characteristic of its phenomenon, similarity in phenomenon between Indonesia and Thailand, and then differences in phenomenon between Indonesia and Thailand. And then next, I will analyze about positioning the result with Nusantara concept. Based on the benchmark from Nusantaran concept, I will position the result whether fulfill the Nusantaran's characteristic or not. Fulfill, sufficient, not fulfill. And then second, looking for the causal relationship between problem and result that occur as a result of the problem. And then third, making solution model efforts of religions positioning in public area. Yes, I open conduct research, collaboration, research formulation and concept, Nusantara concept of diplomacy. Because I'm from international relation, but my major is politics. This is politics structure and system of Nusantaran Empire, and then humanitarian international relation. This is our focus study program in Universitas Kristen Satya Wacana. This is the focus program is humanitarian diplomacy, Indonesia and Thailand relation, one to many versus many to one, and then political identity, religion, and trends. And then example of research question, Nusantaran trait of political structure or organization, international relation of Nusantara Empire, or etc. Same trait of Indonesia and Thailand, political structure of bilateral relationship. Okay. Why religion and trade become political identity, aspect of a political identity, the dimension of political identity, etc. Thank you.
That's very extensive, the Putri. You have done a lot of work, it seems, yeah. Yeah, you've done so much work here. Where do we start? Yeah. So and it's good that you have put a lot of thoughts into your work, into your research. So
I'm sorry, I feel nervous.
Oh, feel nervous. That's all right. This is we are just like a family discussion, just among ourselves, right? Keluarga. It's like Chang said just now. Keluarga, satu keluarga. A family of discussion. The family discussing this together. You have laid out a lot of work, a lot of analysis in your presentation. I want to capture the gist of what you're doing, and I want to understand what your thinking behind this. And you actually have certain research questions at the middle there, and then at the end you have examples of research questions further, right? Right. Okay. Can you go to your research questions again? You have the research questions. Just now you have 3 there, and the last one is a short one, and the middle one was quite a long one. There. Okay. Okay. So why question? Why violation based on religious sentiment happened in Indonesia and Thailand? Thailand and Indonesia has same root in Nusantara. They had experienced suffering because of politicized religious sentiments, but Majapahit Empire succeeded overcoming the problems and strengthening the sovereignty, defining correspondence, stable ideology. What is the position of Indonesia and Thailand politicized religious sentiment problem in the light of Nusantara political concept of ideology? Okay, solution. All right. Okay. So if we take your what you have written here, so so you have one component of your research is about the Nusantara ideology, Nusantara paradigm, right? Nusantara political concepts. So that is one. All right. The other one is you're looking at religious sentiments get politicized in Indonesia and in Thailand. And so that's another one, right? All right, that's another one. What's the is that so what's the is there another one, another part to your research? So the one you have a part that looks at Nusantara Nusantara concept of international relations, concept of peace, right? No, that. The other one is okay. So is there a third part? So the other one is looking at how religious sentiments become politicized in Indonesia, Thailand, right? The politicization of religious sentiment, so to say. Is there a third one, or that's it? Oh.
Yes, Prof. I will find about why violence based on politicized religion sentiment happen in Indonesia and Thailand,
Okay.
and then I will making a solution model effort of religion reposition in public area based on Nusantaran paradigm.
All right. Okay.
And then this is my main concept, because Sutasoma said that Buddha and Siwa is the different but have the same aim. So it's called Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, and then in Indonesia, this is adopt with ideology in Indonesia.
Berbeda-beda tapi tetap satu, right? Berpecah-pecah tetapi tetap satu, kan?
Yes, after Soeharto, the ideology, the tolerance, it is have a degradation.
After Soeharto.
After Soeharto, yes.
Okay. So if we put it into different parts, yeah. So one of your research question is why is religious sentiments being politicized in Indonesia? The other one is why is religious sentiments being politicized in Thailand, right? Right. The third one is to see whether Nusantara concepts how is it related to Nusantara concepts, right? There's a third one. Okay. Oh, those are big questions there. That's a huge question. The why question is one of the toughest questions. This is the next toughest question is the why question. The toughest question is the how question you put at the end there. The why question is a tough question to answer. So if you look at the way you want to answer that question, why religious sentiments are being politicized, how do you intend to answer the question? You look at I know that you'll be using Nusantara afterwards, right? But before that, how do you go about answering that question? Why religious sentiments become politicized? How do you research on that question?
I will use interview to a political party and then interest group with related to my research, and then focus group discuss. Actually, I already done with focus group discussion with Thailand, with from Payap University. It is academic, and then from student from Thammasat, from Fatoni University, and then from Chiang Mai University. It is like focus group discuss with a panel. I give them several questions about democracy and religion and politics in Thailand, and then they are have a different thoughts about the perspective of religion. Religion in public area in Thailand, it is not a sensitive topic, not some sensitive issues, but in Thailand, we talk about politics. This is a sensitive issue in public area. This is opposite in Indonesia.
Okay. Yeah, politics is discussed everywhere, right?
Everywhere in media, in social media.
on the try show, becha also, coffee shops, yeah, anywhere. Yeah, true. So that okay. Now, your question about why religious sentiment gets politicized is an important question. It's also a tough question to answer. So I would imagine that that line of question is would require your looking at events. You're looking at events too, right? So there should be, and if you want to use that question, right? If you're looking at that question, then you're looking at events. You need to look at how events contribute to the what is it? Yeah, to the politicization of religious sentiments, right? So you need to look at that. You probably would need to look at a few other things like demographics, right? The different groups of people, ethnic, religion, identities, right? Issue identity. So that is another one. You probably will need to look at the different, because we're talking about religious sentiment in Nusantara. If you look at Indonesia, the religious sentiment cuts across ethnic sentiment too. So it's not just religious; it's also ethnic, right? So that's another dimension to the problem. So it's not as easy to answer by just doing group discussion, by just doing interviews. So you do need to, the normal international relations approach is actually to look at events and to map out the events and to see whether there's a connection between the events. Yeah, you also need to look at if you are looking at a certain period of time, you need to state that period of time. Yeah, religious sentiments have been there. Well, since Majapahit time, there's already religious sentiment, right? But we are not looking from that point. You maybe looking at since independence or what. You got to show the time frame as well. So that's another one. The other one is to look at if you are doing this from the perspective of societal analysis, and analysis at the society level, at the nation level, right? You also should be having a contesting hypothesis, right? Because there might be other explanation besides what is it? Whatever explanation you're saying, there's a religious sentiment get politicized. You might have it's because of it could be partisan politics. It could be was it a certain oligarchy who wants to perpetuate the power, right? So sometimes religion get exploited because when religion get exploited, you know, the people will get angry or not angry, things like that, right? So religion is a powerful thing. But a higher or deeper level, you need to look at other analysis, including what I mean. The book right now is Fukuyama's book on identity. It is very relevant to what you're doing on identity. You know, remember Francis Fukuyama was writing about the end of history. So as if identity is not important, suddenly identity becomes so important, overwhelmingly important, almost like a defining characteristic of politics right now is identity, almost, right? Might not be completely that way, but very strong way of, there's a strong power, strong force, right? Identity. And it's not just us in the more developing nations, right? But also in US, right? And identity politics is crazy over there, right? And you see that happening in UK as well. Many countries, European countries, is happening. So identity is becoming stronger and stronger, and it's not it's not thinning. It's actually becoming stronger. So so there are other so Fukuyama's analysis leads to the idea of recognition of one's identity. The issue of marginalization also comes in, right? So what I'm saying to you, Putri, is that this is a huge topic here, right? Maybe you need to have sub research questions to your big question. So you have this what is it why is religious sentiment being politicized in Indonesia? That will be one research question if you ask that, right? I think why violation based on politicized religious sentiment. See, your question number one has certain presumption, has certain premise that violation based on example of violation we're talking about. What is you talking about there? Example of violation, violation based on politicized religious sentiment. What example is this? Can you give us an example?
Yes, in the first third slide.
Oh, this one, Assoc situation, yeah.
Yes, Assoc situation.
Okay,
And then in Thailand is among the religious activities.
So violation here, you're referring, when you say violation, you're referring to conflict, or what are you what violation is usually violation of something, right?
Yes.
So here, conflict, right? Conflict. I think the word you might want to use is conflict then. So violation, usually we talk about violations, violation of human rights, violation of the law, violation of something. So here we are talking about conflict, right? So it's a religious conflict. I'm thinking there might be something that more manageable for you to demonstrate in your research, and that is instead of asking this very big question that jumps from one conclusion to another, right? Is to look at how religious sentiments are being politicized or not being politicized. So in your analysis at Putri, you can look at how religious sentiments or religious differences, religious differences or religious issues are being politicized or not politicized in Indonesia or in Thailand, right? So you can see a pattern of politicization of religious sentiments. Okay, so I think by doing that, you will eventually see certain patterns of politicization, right? And that can be a part or an important part of your research question. How? What are the ways? Right. What are the manifestation of politicization of religious sentiment in Indonesia in comparison with Thailand? You can do that, right? So by doing that, you are making your research much more manageable, and I'm thinking about the Viva, about your during the Viva, right? A big question, if there's a disagreement from the examiner's point of view, then you might be more in trouble there. But if you have certain parts that are shown, demonstrated to be true through your findings, right? That is much safer. So if you talk about religious sentiments that get politicized, for example, during election period, right? Or within the election discourse, right? So I think the Assoc situation was leading towards election. Am I right? Or before that, a year before that? I'm not sure. I forgot. Right. So that you can kind of map up a certain religious. You can map out certain religious conflicts, and then you see what are the patterns underlying it, right? Are you following me, Putri? Yeah.
Yes, Prof. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So
Actually, I already analysis about post-election in Indonesia, and I have my article in Sinta. This is my article about election, pasca election, the transformation of radical movement in Yogyakarta post 2019 president election. This article talk about the transformation of radical movement used to get vote in the religion sentiment, and then after that, how about the radical movement? And then the radical movement is soft diplomacy in like gathering ceremony in a cell or others like community like this.
okay. So the coming back to your research questions later. So you could the last part of your research question, which is the how question. You have the how question at the end there, right? Make a solution model efforts of religious reposition in public areas. That's not quite a research question. You can see there, right? So making a solution. So, but that can be an important part of your analysis. Putri, right? That's an important part of analysis. So
this is my aim analysis.
oh
Right?
yeah. At the end, you produce something at the end, and that that can be argued much more effectively and systematically. Once you have your findings, you know, you can say, okay, the part that's lacking here, then this is how it needs to be improved. The policy of the government needs to be improved this way, or you know, hate speech or whatever you want to talk about there. I think that can be moved to analysis. So you don't need that as part of your research question. So your research question, if you can break it into two, one is about Indonesia, the other one is about Thailand, and then another one is about comparing between Indonesia and Thailand, and in the comparison, you can put in the Nusantara constructs, right? The Nusantara paradigms. Maybe you want to call it Nusantara paradigm. It's a bigger political concept, but then you or whatever, up to you how you want to define it. But the Nusantara political concept or Nusantara ideology here, you have that. There's a third question. So the first one is about Indonesia. The second one is about Thailand, and then yeah, you have the third one is a comparison, and then vis-a-vis the Nusantara political concept. So the first one, you can even break it as, you know, yeah, you see how you want to see how the conflict that is based on religious sentiment develops, right? So
the conflict is based on politics, but sentiment religious used to use for vehicle.
okay, yeah. So this is where the phrasing of the question needs to be correct, right? Because eventually your findings need to answer the research question. So you want to say, how would you want to phrase it? You want to phrase it as what leads to, can you say that? What leads to conflict that's based on politicized religious sentiment or something like that, right? So then you can talk about certain patterns that emerge, certain factors, you know. So it becomes a what question instead of a why question. Yeah, what development leads to. So when you say what development leads to, instead of becoming a why question, or a why question, it is where you got the proof, right? Where you got the proof. If it's a what question, it's a matter of improving the what, right? So what development leads to what, events lead to what, you know, you can talk about that. What process, it depends on what you want to choose the word, you know, what kind of words you want to choose. Then yeah, what is the, so the yeah, to conflict based on
Like this, Prof.
yeah. Put further thoughts in it. I'm thinking the idea of politicized, there's a D there, politicized religious sentiment, or politicized religious sentiment, that concept, so politicized religious sentiment, meaning a religious sentiment that get politicized, right? Right. What if there's so you're not looking at conflict that is based on religious sentiment alone. You're looking at conflict that is religious sentiment that's being politicized.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you're in Indonesia, and the other one is in Thailand, right? So your task would be identifying politicized religious sentiment.
Yes.
You need to identify that, right? and then analyze this politicized religious sentiment and look at what leads to that conflict. Right? And let's bring it to a higher level of research questions. What is it? Factors what leads to yeah. Okay, leave it open first. Leave it like that first. Maybe eventually, when you research further, you want to fine tune it further, you could. So you can talk about what development leads to the conflict. You can say that. And so that the sub question can be, are there specific patterns of developments, right? Are there specific patterns of developments? Yeah, or you can put what are the specific patterns of development or patterns of events. You can put patterns of development, patterns of events. Can do that. Never mind. You can the spelling. You can correct the spelling. Patterns of events or patterns of development. Events, you focus on events, and development you have broader. What is specific patterns of development? Yeah. Okay. And there are different what specific patterns of development lead, or lead. You have to use lead, right? Underlie the not instead of lead, because you use the word lead up there too, right? So to avoid using the word lead, underlie or what is it? Play a role, or underlie or underlie, not underline, underlie. Why underlie? What specific pattern of development? Underlie.
Underlie or
Underlie.
what is the
pakai y why kalau
okay.
Underlie.
I pakai y.
Why,
sir? You and why, sir?
Under why?
Yeah.
Pak Muzakir.
Ya, pakai y. Underline L y.
Okay.
there's underi. There's an L. There's an L there.
Under L y. L Y. Itu sip. Ya, good.
Underlie the politicization. The politicization. How about that? Okay. All right. So, what specific patterns? There's an S there. So, Putri. So, what happens is, you want to see certain patterns, right? Of development. You know what I'm saying? So you can see the patterns of development can be about economic marginalization. The patterns of development can be about the proximity towards election. The patterns of development can be the power play of political parties. So you will need to capture the patterns of development, right? So when you see the different patterns of development and put them together, so these patterns of development lead to the conflict. Maybe there are more than one pattern, right? I suspect there's more than one, of course. So if you think about what I would do, Putri, is I would think of specific politicized religious sentiment instead of having it open, right? So if you want to focus on the Ahok situation, you just name the Ahok incident or whatever. Or you want to focus on what's the name? Habib Rizik, right? Habib. You have, yeah. So and you can capture more than one case.
Yes, I will finding largest cases in 2016 until 2021.
Yeah, and you don't need to do all of them, right? You just do 3, 4,
largest
whatever.
cases.
But the important thing, right, Putri, is that your analysis is there's depth in your analysis. So you do not want to have small incidents that there's not much to write about. Right? Certainly, Ahok, there's a lot to write about, yeah. Then, so it could be 2 or 3. I think that would be enough because you have 2 countries to compare, to look at, and then you have the third question. So this could be a huge PhD thesis even to write there, because you're doing comparison of 2 countries, yeah, right? Which is good. This is not bad, but maybe you want to, yeah, you want to manage your research so that you have the resource, the time resource to write what you want to write, because there's a lot there. But then let's see what you have first before we say that. So so the third question will be how the third question can be about the Nusantara question, which is how do what, yeah, Nusantara, where is it? How does this relate to the Nusantara, something like that? Eventually you can improve it further. How do these what is it, dynamics, it's a general word to use. How do these dynamics, there's an S, dynamics, dynamics S, relate to the Nusantara, whatever you want to say, Nusantaran paradigm, Nusantaran ideology, Nusantara whatever, political, whatever, okay. Yeah. I would also recommend that you choose specific Nusantara paradigm. So just now you were talking about what was mentioned in your earlier slide. You can capture that, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, whatever. So that, I mean, there's Nusantara, there's all kinds of paradigm. Like batik is also paradigm. So, too many paradigms. Which particular paradigm you're talking about, right? Right. So you want to choose 2 or 3 for Indonesia, 2 or 3 for Thailand, and then state that in your research questions, right? So when it comes to examination during the viva, you're managing the scope of your research, of your analysis. That people say, well, there are cases not like this. There's different cases. Those are different cases. What you want to talk about are the cases that you highlight in your research, right? So it is true within the context of your analysis of your research, right? And instead of generalizing to the whole of history of Indonesia and Thailand. So you want to go specific. In fact, you can see that this is in the context of a new nation state, right? It's not the old Nusantara. It's a new Nusantara, a new nation state, right? This is just to fine-tune your research questions. You have written a lot before this. I will keep the. You can keep those first, but you will need to adjust and make what your previous arguments and analysis to adjust them to match what your research questions is about, right? So so the problem statement can also be about there's a vacuum in the conceptual or theoretical literature on the patterns of development, explaining the politicized religious sentiment. So, so your contribution is about explaining the patterns of development. So you see what I'm saying now, Putri? So your problem statement must lead to your research question there.
Okay, Prof.
Right? So if you find there's literature already explaining, your some parts of research question, then you fine tune the research questions further, right? So the research questions, like I said, all research is about answering research questions. So research question is the compass, right? So if you need to, when you read the literature, you found out something that is different or something that is already done, then you improve your research question further. Right? So always be looking at your research question as the guide, the compass. And what you do is that you just make sure that the research questions are PhD worthy and is answering a question, an inquiry that has not been answered before. So that is important. Then you can make a theoretical contribution, right? That said, yeah, Putri, I think there are already some write-ups on conflicts of this nature in Indonesia and in Thailand as well. So this is a general guide for you, but then you can you want to fine-tune further, maybe if you find that what has been explained there in the literature is already answering your research question, right? Sometimes it's also about what, yeah. When I'm looking at this, I'm looking at remember during the time when you have order baru jatuh kan, order baru jatuh, and then order baru right?
Yes, Order Baru.
Nah, Soeharto reformasi, betul, right? So at the same time, Malaysia experienced more or less the same thing, right? It was the same period, 1998, 19.
A pattern nih.
Right?
Okay.
So in Indonesia, the government get replaced. In Malaysia, the government did not get replaced. Interesting, right? So what was different then? So you know what, that will be some questions you want to post, right? I'm not talking about in your research, but there will be the question that you want to start theorizing. You know, what was absent or present in one country, which is not present in or absent in other country, or what was present or absent in one event, but it's not present or absent in another event. So if we take the the Assoc event versus the whatever event, you can look at, in this event the context was like this, in the other event the context was something else. So I see you want to look at the patterns there. You see what I'm saying, Putri? Right? Okay,
Yes.
so eventually you could come up with that come out like a boxes. You say, well, these are the things that are missing, or these are the things that are present, right? So well, in the during the reformasi years in Malaysia at that time, there are people who demonstrated, but a lot more people were not demonstrating on the street because they were busy working, right? So employment plays a role, right? Employment, too busy, right? The other one is the example. Yeah, these are things you want to evaluate. The even the street protest culture, the street protest culture in Indonesia and in Malaysia are quite different, right? I remember my Iranian students, Mirzad, he graduated now, who is also in international relations, right? So you look at Malaysian street demonstration, and that time there was some street demonstration. I forgot which one last time, about 5-7 years ago. So he was laughing at Malaysian demos because Malaysians, when they demo, right, when they do the street protest, they will do street protest, right, demo, and then suddenly they will go into the mall and do some shopping, and then they come up with some shopping bags, and then sometimes you stop by, eat ice cream first, and then they will continue. So they are not serious in the demo. He was saying that. He said in Iran, when people demonstrate, some people get killed. He said. He was jailed for a year. He said. So it's interesting. So there's a culture of demonstration and the culture of street protest that are different too. So you want to be able to capture all those realities too, right? Anyways, Putri, okay.
Sorry,
Okay.
my connection. Okay, Prof.
So the next round we'll see a better set of research question, and then your problematization, your problem statement. You want to relook at problem statement again, right? To identify the theoretical vacuum there, right? The conceptual vacuum. Okay. Anyone wants to share any of your thoughts with Putri? I think there's a lot that Putri has prepared here.
Okay, hello sir.
Go ahead. Yeah. Yes,
Go ahead,
please.
Very interesting topic.
You got to be louder, Muzakir.
Very interesting, sir. I have maybe there is to discuss about the religion and the public life. There is the one of the maybe in sociology of religion, in the contemporary era, there is the name of the Jose Casanova, one of the prominent sociologists. He wrote book The Public Religion in the Modern Life. He actually conduct the research in several countries, in Latin America, in Eastern Europe, and then even in Asia. He saw that the religion can, as the, how to say, previously, some sociologists said that the modernization will lead the religion into the private life. But in his findings, show that the religion emerged in public life, even generate the social political transformation. So I think very interesting, this book. I think public religion in modern life. He showed that for example in Latin America, he revealed that the liberation theology that run by the Catholic background can, how to say, as the political alternative to the political regime. In Eastern Europe, how the Catholic Church also as the, how to say, they support the social movement when the communists collapse in the in former Warsaw bloc, for example. So so it is very interesting. But I don't exactly, but after the communist collapse, even in Asia also, I think the Iran phenomena, this the revolution. So it shows that the religion is not, how to say that the religion also as the what we call the revolutionary revolutionary factor to generate the transformation in the public life. For example, he discussed this topic in his book, Public Religion in the Modern. Maybe I think maybe it relate with your discussion. Of course, this research already conducted maybe in 17 until 19 maybe, but I think this very I think this still related, but maybe there is, of course, there is some issue that should be to contextualize in the contemporary context. Okay, thank you.
Pak Muzakir, please share the PDF.
Oh,
Or
yes.
let me borrow your books.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
I share this one.
Oh, okay, this one in the checkbox. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And definitely you want to include Fukuyama's book on identity. Yeah, that's very relevant. What is it? Relevant literature. Also, yeah. Putri, one thing, yeah, and about the Nusantara, our part of the world, the politics in our part of the world is also very the word is the many fronts, right? Many fronts. So sometimes we see a front stage, the backstage, and there's a backstage to the backstage, right? So and then you see, why is it last time the politicians were fighting each other and suddenly they're hugging each other now, you know what I mean? And then they're fighting and then rangkul terus, it's like, and then the followers, they continue to be loyal to the leader. The leader say, fight this leader, we fight the leader, right? And so there's that happens in our politics too. So there are two things I want to say about that, right? Not that it doesn't happen in the Western societies, right? You see now with the what is it? Yeah, this identity politics becomes stronger and stronger. It overwhelms the United States, right? The whole country is basically divided into two on many different fronts, right? The Republicans and Democrats. However, in the context of Nusantara, maybe in the context of Southeast Asia, right? There's the front, there's also the backstage, there's also the backstage to the backstage. So sometimes religion is being used to hide certain other more important issues, right? So whereas the issue of concern is much more about equality, about fairness, it's about more fundamental issues like that. But then the fight becomes identity fight. It's us versus them instead of equality, instead of employment, instead of economic justice. So it becomes the fight becomes a religious, ideological identity fight, and so so in our analysis as scholars, sometimes we do need to see the other games that are at work that is also influencing the dynamics of the conflict, right? So which is weird, right? Putri, right? We see they fight each other, and suddenly they hug each other, and then suddenly, you know, those who support become enemy become support, and it's just weird. It's just like that. Right? I think it's time that the leaders are loyal to the followers instead of followers loyal to the leaders. So in your analysis, right? You would want to see. Thank you, Adam. You want to see contending explanations. So instead of one line linear explanation, you have you know, other alternative explanation to that as well. So what happens is in your analysis, especially in something like this, right? You do not look blindsided. You know, you do not have these blind spots. Right? You're just one track. You have like, yeah, I'm aware of this. I'm aware of this. I'm aware of this. So, you know, you want to demonstrate that. Yeah, Putri, you know what I'm saying, right? So
Yes, Prof.
Yeah.
Based on I think Robert Dahl, there are no eternal friends. There are eternal interests.
Yeah, that is sad, man. That is sad. That is sad. Yeah, I guess I don't know. Yeah, that's politics. I guess I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. This is where. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sir. Adam, you want to say something, Adam? Adam, is okay?
No, nothing.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Muzaki, you want to say something?
No, sir.
Okay, I
No.
think your voice. Anyway,
No,
so yeah, that I think it's been a long session we have today, right? We seldom have 5 presenters. Today we have 5 presenters. So and you all Putri, you know what to do, right? The next round, okay? Okay. So anyways, one thing I want to note, if you gave me anything to read and all that, right? Give me a minimum of what, between 1 month to 2 weeks time, something like that, right? So I have time to read and all that. So you know, if you pass me something and then 2 days after that, I won't be able to respond sometimes because I do have other commitments, other deadlines too. Right. So all right. Thank you very much, everyone. Right. Been a long day.